All right, let's stick with politics. Thursday, Supreme Court rulings could have far-ranging political consequences. For that, let's bring in Daniel Strauss, who's a senior political reporter over at The Guardian U.S. Daniel, great to have you here. Thanks so much for getting up early with us this morning. Let's start with those Supreme Court rulings about the president's financial records. Explain why the district attorney in New York City is able to see President Trump's tax returns, but Congress is not.
I mean, the argument here is that the president is not immune to investigations, but the House and congressional committees can't look at this the same way because the argument is that it could be a partisan manner, essentially. While Cy Vance and his prosecutor's office can look into this for a criminal matter. Why this matters is because for a long time, essentially even before Trump took office, there has been questions about his finances, and it's been something that Democrats on Capitol Hill have been eager to look into from the beginning. But so far, they haven't made much leeway, and I think this is a major milestone in that.
Yeah, Daniel, what makes it even more interesting is pretty much everybody, except for maybe President Trump, is claiming victory in all of this. Nancy Pelosi said that this was a great day. Cyrus Vance said that this was a great day. Even Jay Sekulow, President Trump's attorney, even said that he was fine with this decision. President Trump was the only one that didn't really like it. But a lot of people are saying that the Supreme Court really just kind of punted on this decision, not really making a decision on all of this. Do you agree with that?
I mean, you see this a lot when the Supreme Court kicks a ruling back down to the lower courts. There's always sort of a grumbling that they just decide to skip or threw their hands up. I don't think that's what's going to happen in the end. I think this is going to go back to the Supreme Court, and I think they're eventually going to have to make a ruling on this.
Let's look at John Roberts in all of this. Obviously, he has sided with the liberal justices quite a bit, especially when it came to a lot of the big rulings that we got here. We got Neil Gorsuch siding with liberals on two big cases. This one, obviously, with the tax returns and the LGBTQ discrimination case as well. Do you think President Trump is upset that a lot of these conservative justices, including two that he put on the bench, are not siding with him more frequently?
Yeah, I think the president obviously expected when he nominated these justices to have them on his side consistently. But what happens with a Supreme Court justice is that the longer they're on the court, the more they are just exposed to the community of being a Supreme Court justice. And, you know, their rulings are what the public broadly views as their partisanship sort of dissipates to an extent. And I think that's what's happening here.
Daniel, how is John Roberts, the Chief Justice, going to kind of be viewed throughout history after all of this? I mean, by the end of the day, he still is a conservative at heart, but now he's essentially become the swing justice. He's become the Anthony Kennedy in all of these cases. How do you think history is going to look at John Roberts at the end of the day?
I think it's exactly what you say here. It's that in the long run, he's going to be viewed as an ultimately conservative justice who nevertheless took some rulings that you wouldn't have expected the Chief Justice of the Supreme Court, a conservative, to take at the time. He on landmark decisions that conservatives really thought would be a slam dunk for their side, he hasn't always joined with them.
All right, I want to talk about one of the other high court decisions that came out yesterday. It's kind of been buried in all of this because everybody's been so focused on President Trump's taxes. This one affirmed Native American rights in a very historic ruling. You got Neil Gorsuch siding with the liberal justices in this. Could you give our viewers just an update on this? What was this ruling about?
So this ruling essentially said that a big part of Oklahoma is actually Native American land, and it falls under Native American jurisdiction, meaning that normal investigations by law enforcement don't apply there, and the Native American courts apply. So this is important because that means that a lot of investigations going on, a lot of convictions that have happened, really should have happened through Native American court rather than the normal courts that I think most of the country is used to. Advocates for this ruling saw this as a big victory. And this is going to be something that I think is going to be viewed or be referred to outside of Oklahoma in multiple cases related to law enforcement and the Native American community.
Daniel, I want to switch gears here and talk about the coronavirus, especially when it comes to opening schools. It seems like we now have our new hot political topic now that everybody in debate that everybody's going after, and it's about schools reopening. Ron DeSantis coming out yesterday, the governor of Florida, saying that if Costco can be open, that schools can now be reopened as well. And some Republicans are saying that maybe this is going to be the issue that galvanizes their base as President Trump continues to slip in the polls. How do you think that this is going to play out at the end of the day?
I mean, I think what we're seeing on Capitol Hill is sort of a reflection of the debate going on in state houses and around the country, which is that there is a strong contingent arguing that schools need to be reopened, partially just from an economic perspective, but also just because there are kids who have been out of school for a very long time. On the other hand, there are folks who are saying it's just not safe. Reopening schools in any serious manner is going to spread the coronavirus too quickly, and it's just too early to do that right now.
Daniel, the president has even threatened to withhold funding for a lot of these schools if they don't open up. We might remember he threatened to do that to the University of California as well, and that never ended up coming to fruition. But do you think the president would withhold funding from public schools if they don't open?
I mean, you can never tell with this president, but what we do know is that there's a pretty partisan divide on this, with congressional Republicans in the next stimulus package looking at reopening schools as a divisive line in the sand. And they really want to reopen them. So they are willing to hold funding or push for some kind of voucher program to encourage schools to reopen. Democrats are a little more cautious about this. This is pretty unusual, actually. I didn't expect the next debate over a stimulus package to fall on Congress and reopening schools. But I think it underscores the sort of ongoing debate about whether it's too early to restart the economy in full or not.
All right, Daniel Strauss, senior political reporter over at The Guardian U.S. Great insight as always. Thanks for getting up early with us this morning, Daniel.